I'm your host, Sean MacKenzie. Thank you for joining me once again on my channel on data engineering. In this episode, we go back to our Microsoft Access playlist, and we're going to talk about collections. Now, in some recent videos, we talked about how to use arrays for various things. And arrays are really great because you can have multi-dimensional arrays, you can have all kinds of columns, numbers of columns and rows and things like that in your arrays. But sometimes you just need a simple list with a key and a value, and that's where collections come in, and they're very, very handy for that purpose. So without further ado, let's get to it. Looking for more content like this? Make sure to check out my Patreon. The link is in the description. Okay, so this is a pretty neat topic. Collections is one of the things that people sort of overlook when they are using Access or doing VBA programming. So what I did there was I used the Create ribbon and I clicked on a new module over on the right hand side there, and we're going to do a little bit of programming to look at collections. And it's kind of similar to, we recently talked about arrays, 1D and 2D arrays, and 2D arrays are really awesome because you can have like unlimited columns and all that stuff, and they're kind of more like a foundational thing. They're kind of like raw objects, if you know what I mean. Whereas collections are really great because if you just need a list with like a key and a value or anything, then collections are awesome. And so what we're going to do is I've created my collection here up above there, and I'm going to dim my variable as a new collection, and then I'll use the with end with here because we're going to do a lot of .adds. But what you can do is with the collection, you can go .add and then put in the value that you want and then the key. So the first one is the item and the second one is the key, and you can actually specify where you want that to be inserted into the collection. So if you put in one of the keys, you can actually put the add, you can add it in anywhere in the collection in the order. So there's our collection, and by using with, like I just highlighted there, we're just replacing saying this using the variable name over and over and over and over again. So we can just go .add. That's why I'm using the with there and the end with, just in case you're wondering. I have a video about with, so you can check that one out as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bunch of items here, and you can see I'm just adding the value or the item and then the key for that. Now I could have like a numeric key in quotes there. I could have like an alphanumeric key, whatever, for the key value. But in the item value, I can put in short text, I can put long text, I can put a number, I can put a date, I can put an object. So you can very easily create sort of like a collection of things, and that's very, very handy when you're programming and you've got a form open with a whole bunch of data on it, and you don't want to go back to the database to get stuff or data or things, and so you might store information in a collection because you can put dates and numbers and all kinds of things in there, and objects and things, and so it makes it really, really handy and very powerful, and that's why I like to use collections. So I'll even add in like a convert to currency here of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I can add dates too. We'll add some of those, and I've added some random keys in here. Make sure your key is unique. And so this is a bit different from using an array, where an array of strings, for example, you can only put strings in, or array of numbers, you can only put numbers. With an array of variants, which we often use, you can have all different kinds of things in there. But the collection is really nice because if you just need that list with a key, like a key and value list, it's very, very powerful. And so you can see I put in 8/15/2023 in hashtags there. That's a literal date. So You know, can put dates in. I could put in, you know, this 132.22558 as a big sort of as a double, I suppose it gets turned into there, and I've got a huge key 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 for the key, and so that's our collection. If I show you all the items together, they make up the collection. So it's a collection of things. They might not be the same kind of things, and that makes it really easy and nice to use, and collections are really actually pretty awesome. And if you only need that sort of key and value pair, then it's actually probably preferable to use collections over using arrays for that. The only thing I would say is that arrays are a little bit faster for you know, whipping through and checking things in the array. However, the collection has the benefit that you can say, give me the value at key, you know, 4D, and if you've got a whole ton of things in your collection, it's going to, you know, that's going to be a really fast lookup. And so if I'm doing a loop here of for each, so I'm saying for each item in the collection, there's my item in the collection, which is what we're populating here. Just print the item, and that's going to print the item value. I used ITM as it's a variable name. It's not a reserved word or anything. And so I'm going to save this, and I'll just call it collections. And now what we're going to do when I click in here, and if I run this, it's going to loop through the collection and spit it out into the immediate window below. And there's my sub. There's the end of my subroutine, and when I click inside the sub and then click on the run sub user form, it's going to spit everything out into that immediate window because it looped through for each one of the items in the collection, as it says. So there's our A, B, C, and D, E, F, and you can see the number is right justified because it is actually a number. Same with the 1 2 3 4 5 6 and the date. You can see it has been converted to my regional settings of my computer because it is actually a date that is stored in there. And of course, one of the great benefits of using a collection with a key, of course, is that we can look up an item by the key. And so I'll do that now. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to shift this down here, or I'll disable the debug off of our loop that printed everything so that we don't get extra stuff in our immediate window. And I'm just going to show you how I can just go, you know, debug.print, or I could load a variable from this, you know, this value, but I'll just say give me 4A, you know, whatever the value is or item is at 4A, you know, print that out. And so when I hit go on the toolbar there, you can see it gets that 4A string that was put in there. This is some long text that is talking about some stuff. You could change it and get a different key. You might have some code that, you know, is getting different values from there, and that will get the date that was put into 4D for the key. And so you can see how nice this is to use compared to using just a single array, where, or I should say, even it would be a 2D array with a key and a value key column, value column, or two arrays, you know, one with a key and one with values. But what collections do is they allow you to really get things really easily. And so if I put in 1 there, now there's 2 ways you can reference it. One is through the key, which we did before, but you can see I put in this 1 here. If I put an integer in there instead, it's actually going to get that index value as opposed to the key value. So I can put in 1, I could go, you know, 4, you know, items 1 to the count. I could get, you know, get all of the items that way. If I choose number 5, I can go, let's see, 1 2 3 4, 5. So the fifth one is that some long text about other stuff. And so you can refer to things using either the index or you can use the key value. And so that really makes collections kind of like awesome to use when you really need to have something in memory that is, like I said before about arrays, so that you can look things up very quickly without making a call back to the database, which could be slow. Now, one of the nice things about collections that you don't really get with the arrays is the ability to just say, hey, take this key, the item with this key, just take it out of my collection, just get rid of it. And that's what that line there does. So I'm going collection.remove 2b, and then here I re-enabled my print so that I can look at all of the contents of the collection after we used the remove command there, or the remove method. And so now you can see it's got ABC, but DEF is missing because we removed it, and the next item is that 111222333. So we actually added everything to our collection, we removed one item, and then we printed it out, and you can see how that item was removed. And that's very, very, very handy when you're dealing with a lot of stuff in memory, to have that ability just to remove stuff, remove different items from the collection. Now, collections are really cool, but you do need to remember that it's not the same as arrays, where if you empty out an array, an element in an array, the spot for the element is still there. If you remove an item from a collection, the collection gets re-indexed. So that means that after I remove 2b, you need to be aware that, you know, if I try to look up number 2, the second item in there by index, like I'm going to print here, you'll see, oh, I should delete this stuff first. There we go. Okay, now I'll run it, and you can see you just need to remember that it got re-indexed, and so now the second item in the collection is what the third one was before, because we removed that second item there. We removed that guy, and now number 2 is that 1112233, and that's very different from how arrays work. And you should remember, because you may end up in the situation where you loop through the collection using the index. And this is a very handy tip that I learned a long time ago. If you find yourself in the situation where you have to, you know, go from 1 to 10 items or 100 items, and as you go along the way you're gonna remove some items, that's gonna actually not work correctly if you go forward through the collection. So the tip is go backwards through the collection, so that every time you kick something out of the collection, when you go back one, it's still the same. It's still the same order and items that were there before. So that's something to remember. So another way to say that is that the items that are before the item that you removed are still the same as before you removed it. Whereas the index, when the index changes, if you go forward through the set from 1 to 100, they will change. And so in that case, you would use, you know, for x equals 100 to 1, step minus 1, and then next. And so it would start at the end and zip through, and then you can use the remove statement. And that's the same for if you cycle through things like toolbars. If you're building toolbars in the old toolbars, you know, if you remove a toolbar button, then the index, it gets re-indexed as well. And that's a good example of that. But okay, so here I've got my collection is equal to CLN, but what we're going to do is we're going to add this set to it, because it's an object, and then we're going to make sure that our function has a type on it. So we're going to say function my collection as collection, so that when we pass this this value back, or this object back, it'll actually pass back the collection so that you can use it, you know, in a form, or in your form code or report code or something like that. And so I'm just going to drop a button on here, and I canceled the wizard that came up for the button, and I'm just going to give this a quick name here. I'll call it get item, I guess, and I'll give it the name CMD get, and then I'll go to the event tab for the button, and it's this on click event that I'm going to populate. So I'm going to click the little ellipsis there to the right, and then I'll choose the code builder in the choose builder and click OK. And then now we get this this click event, so basically saying something's going to happen when I click this button. And so I'll put a comment at the top here. I'll just say, you know, get a value from the collection. I mean, you could be using these collections for anything, so we'll just grab a value from our collection that we created as a function. So this will be like a one-time use. If you had a function that returned a collection, this is how you could do it. You could say dim collection main as a collection, and then you'd set that to my collection, which is the function that we created. And then once you've got that in your memory, then you can do a message box, or populate a variable, or whatever it is that you're going to do with it. So we'll just say a message box, you know, give me the value for 4a. And so now when I click the button on the form, you can see it went and got that collection as a function, and it gave me the text result and then in a message box, and that's what I wanted. So that's how I could use it on a form. Now that's a one-time use. That means that the collection disappears as soon as everything's done. It's released from memory. And so you might be wondering, well, what if I had a list in my app that I wanted to use, or a collection in my app that I wanted to use all the time, over and over again? I don't want it to have to build that every time. And so between the top of the code there, where you see option compare database, and your first function, that's where you can put your public variables and your global variables and things like that in an access module. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a public variable called public collection stuff as a collection. And this is a second way that you can do it, which is much faster. And having a public variable means you don't have to reload it over and over and over again. You can just leave it in memory, and then you can do your quick lookup for your form code really fast, especially for big lists on really slow back-end databases and stuff. That function, we're going to use that function, and we're going to populate our collection public variable here. And we'll do that using a subroutine, and I'll just call it set stuff, and that's going to set the value of our stuff collection, which is a public variable that will stay populated as long as the program is open, and as soon as the program is closed, that's when it is destroyed. And so we'll set up the public variable, and it's really simple to do that, because we can just simply say set my public collection variable equal to my collection, and that's a one-liner that will populate that variable. And now once that has been run, this variable will be available to us until the program is closed, which can make your program much faster using that public variable there. And so what I'm going to do is I put my cursor in set stuff, and I hit the run button. You might call this when your program starts up or something like that, but I just ran the set stuff subroutine. So now that variable is actually loaded in memory, and I can show you in the immediate window by just using question mark and asking for the return variable of my stuff collection that's in public. It's a public variable. And so now you can see I was able to get that value, and if I haven't put in a different key, I can get a different value. And that sort of is awesome because it makes it super easy to have that list in memory. There's no network bottleneck. There's no database bottleneck. There's no multi-user load bottleneck or anything like that. It's literally in memory on the user's computer, and so whatever list you have in there is going to be like lightning fast for your form updates or calculations or whatever it is that you're doing in there. And so you can also do it in your form code. So I changed that little procedure there in the click event, and I was able to just say, give me the value of the public collection for stuff, for 4C, and that gives me the whatever value I want from there in my form code. And I didn't even have to call, to create in order to create it over and over on the form to create the collection, because it was sitting in that public variable. And that is an introduction to collections in Microsoft Access. Looking for more resources for your project? Make sure to check out the additional links in the description.